Okay, looks like we live. Hotep, you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Excuse me. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Comedic TV. I'm your host. I'm Pooh, and y'all saw the title. Today we're going to be talking about UFOs in Egypt. UFOs in ancient Egypt. The question comes up a lot, right? Did the ancient Egyptians talk about UFOs? Now, spoiler. The answer to that is yes. Yes, they did. But what you have to understand first and foremost is that they didn't come out and call them UFOs. They didn't say unidentified flying object. That's relatively a new term, right? So, if they did talk about UFOs, what did they call them? And what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you guys some sources. I'm going to actually go to the text, right? I'm going to go to some Egyptian text, and I'm sorry, give me just a second. I'm going to show you guys instances that I believe, okay, that I believe are Egyptians talking about UFOs. Okay, UFOs. A lot of people, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, a lot of people they don't really like to touch this topic. Um for whatever reason. I guess they don't really believe in aliens, they don't believe in UFOs, they don't believe in extraterrestrials, so they try to avoid the topic altogether. And especially individuals that have an affinity with Egypt, such as myself, that really likes Egypt and loves to study Egypt, they don't like to talk about UFOs in ancient Egypt. So what I'm going to do for you guys is we're going to go to some text right off the bat, and I want to show you guys something. Give me just this. And what I'm going to do, I'm getting my screen share ready. I want to share my screen for you guys to show you all something. Okay, bear with me for just a second. Just a second. Uh, this it? No, that's not it. Well, and we're going to be looking at some ancient Egyptian texts. Okay, we're going to be looking at some ancient Egyptian texts. Now, I first want to say shout out. I first want to say shout out to the good brother. It's this brother I follow on YouTube, named Tahuti Brown. I'm in Hotep Rock. I was watching him on another YouTube stream. Killer Priest, some guy named Killer Priest. He has a YouTube channel. They interviewed this guy. I'm in Hotep Rock. They interviewed him. Okay, and he made reference to a story in a book called the Legends Legends of the Gods of Egypt, right? Legends of the Gods of Egypt. Now, I have this book and I've read this book, but he highlighted something in the book that I didn't quite catch at first. And when he mentioned it, I went back to the book and I opened it up and I read through the story and I said, wow, you know what? This does sound like that they're talking about what we would call today UFOs. So there's a story. Watch this, family. There's a story inside of um I hope you guys can see that. There's a story inside of this book, Legends of the Egyptian Gods, right, by E.A. Wallace Budge. Now, the title of this story is The Legend of Horus of Behutet and the Winged Disc. Okay, the legend of Horus, Behutet, and the Winged Disc. Now, Horus is Heru, so this is the legend of Heru. and the winged Horus of Heru of Behutet and the winged dish. Now look how this story starts out. Follow me for just a second, family. Rock with me. Now it says, in the 363rd year, y'all see the highlighted part. That's where it starts. In the 363rd year of Ra Heru Kahuti, who lived forever and forever, his majesty was in Takens, and his soldiers were with him. The enemy did not conspire against their Lord, and the land is called Uatet unto this day. Now, pause right there. In the 363rd year of Ra, Heru Kahuti. Now, what they're talking about here is in Egyptian what the Egyptians taught was that the Neteru were actual beings who lived on earth. Yes, these names of the Neterus are associated with physical manifestations of reality. They're associated with the powers, the forces behind creation, and the word netter, the netters, they're associated with certain human beings, but what we generally know to be the Neteru, or the gods of ancient Egypt, were these special beings who the good brother Amenhotep Ra says that the Egyptians taught came from somewhere else among the stars. Okay, and they actually several of them ruled on earth in the land of Egypt. Now, when we call it Egypt, that quite possibly is an anachronism, right? Maybe it was called Egypt when the Neteru were ruling. Maybe it wasn't, according to what the Egyptians say. So what they're talking about here is this was during this story is taking place while Ra, the god Ra, the Neter Ra, was ruling in Kemet. According to certain sources, you have the Egyptian priest Manetho. He says that the first Neter to rule, physically rule on earth, was Ptah. After him was Ra. After him was Geb, I believe. After Geb, I believe it was Asar or Osiris, then Set, then Heru. And these gods, these Neteru, they all ruled for a certain amount of time. So what they're saying is, when this story that they're documenting took place, the legend of Heru of Behutet and the winged dish, when this story took place, it was in the 363rd year of the god Ra, of the Neter Ra. So this being Ra had been ruling for 363 years, right? And so what they're going to talk about is there came a time when the enemies of Ra they were basically going off. They were acting up, they were studying up, they were conspiring against Ra, and you're going to see that Heru of Behutet. Now, I don't think this is the actual Heru that was Asar's son. Okay, I don't think that, because he was only born after Asar's rule, but there is someone in Egyptian literature called Horus the Elder, Heru the Elder. So you see these names being applied to various beings, okay, that actually lived on earth amongst the humans. The Egyptians taught that the Netters lived amongst the humans. So this particular story is taking place when the god Ra, or the Neter Ra, ruled on earth. Now watch what it goes on to say. Look at the 3, and where it says 3. See my mouse? All right, let's go. And Ra set out on an expedition in his boat, and his followers were with him, and he arrived at Uthis Heru, which lay to the west of this known, and to the east of the canal Pakhenu, which is called, and I imagine a piece of the papyrus or stele is missing to this day. And Heru Behutet was in the boat of Ra, and he said unto his father, Ra Heru Kahuti, i.e., Ra Harmakis, or Ra on the horizon. I see that the enemies are conspiring against their Lord. Let the fiery serpent gain the mastery. Now, this serpent concept is going to come up later, but just notice how Heru Behutet is referring to himself and the netters as the fiery serpent, gaining mastery over the enemies of Ra. Then he goes on to say, then the majesty of Ra Harmakis, right? This is Ra the netter ruling, said unto the divine Ka, O Heru Behutet, O son of Ra, thou exalted one, who didst proceed from me. Overthrow thou the enemies who are before thee straightway. Now look at this. I highlighted it for you, family. And Heru Behutet flew up into the horizon in the form of the great winged disc, for which reason he is called Great God. And it goes on to another page. But look how it says, and Heru Behutet flew up into the horizon in the form of the great winged disc. Now, think about that for a second, family. You have the netters, right? You have the gods who have come from somewhere else. This is what the Egyptians are talking about. They're living on earth with men and women, human beings, and they're ruling. Now, during the rule of Ra, you have one of his children, one of his sons. Now, I don't know if it was a spiritual son, but I believe it was a physical son, a physical child, because he said that he came forth from Ra, named Heru Behutet. He mentions the enemies and he says, let basically allow me to go destroy your enemies that are conspiring against you. And then he flies off. They are on a boat floating down the river, possibly the Nile River, or most likely the Nile River if they're in Egypt, right? And he flies off in the form of the winged disc. So what is the winged disc? I believe I have a picture of that as well. Let me see. Yeah, bam, there we go. Let me share my screen. I want you guys to see this. I want you guys to see this as well. Okay, screen share up. There we go. Okay, look at that. Now, this is a symbol that anybody who's familiar with Egypt, you've seen this symbol a lot of times, right? You have the sun, and again, these serpents. Now, this serpent is going to make a lot more sense as we go further. You see the two serpents on the side of the do I have a pointer on this thing? Maybe not. Okay, whatever. Okay, so you see the sun disk. You see the two serpents on the side of the sun disk, and you see the wings. You know, you got the left wing and you got the right wing. Now, you see this on a lot of temples, okay? Now, when you see this, automatically people are going to try to teach you about some spiritual or metaphysical concept that this represents. And I wouldn't deny that it actually represents something. You know, symbols are multi-layered. Symbols have several different meanings, right? No one can deny that. Okay. So obviously maybe it has some kind of symbolic meaning other than what I'm purporting to be a UFO. But you see that it's also described in a story written by the Egyptians themselves. And they say that one of the Neteru during the time when Ra was ruling on earth flew up into the sky in the form of a winged disc. The winged disc. Now, you won't see them talking about UFO. They will not say unidentified flying object. But if you have a winged disc and you flew off into the sky, that is a flying object. And how would you depict a flying object in the ancient world? If you want to convey that message, you make something with wings. And you would associate it with the sun, possibly because of the shape, but also maybe this technology came with these Neteru, and Ra being the ultimate, and Ra also being associated with the sun. Maybe that's just the symbolism of it. Maybe this is the technology of Ra, the technology of the Neters. But you clearly see the Egyptians talking about this entity, this being Heru Behutet, flying off in the form of a winged disc. Okay, and it gets even deeper. It gets even deeper when you look further into the story. Right, we're gonna look further into the story. And I apologize. I should have some of this stuff queued up, but I was kind of ready to go live with it and just show you this stuff. Yeah, I believe that's it right there. Yeah. So now I'm going to show you guys the next page. Remember, Heru Behutet, he just flew off into the sky in the form of the winged sun disk, right? So let me share my screen again. Okay. Next time I'm gonna queue all this stuff up in a PowerPoint presentation for you guys. So the last sentence said of the last page, and Heru Behutet flew up into the horizon in the form of the great winged disc, for which reason he is called Great God, Lord of Heaven unto this day. So Heru Behutet was known as the Lord of Heaven unto this day because of what he did in the heavens in the form of the winged disc. And it goes on to say, and when he saw the enemies in the heights of heaven, he set out to follow after them in the form of the great winged disc, and he attacked with such terrific force those who opposed him that they could neither see with their eyes nor hear with their ears, and each of them slew his fellow. Now, just picture this for a second, family. Now you have Heru Behutet, you have yeah, if y'all can see that, that's my son. His name is actually Heru. So he hear Heru Behutet, he probably hear his name. That's not his nickname. That's his real name. But you have Heru Behutet, he flies off into the heavens in the form of this great winged disc, right? And when he sees the enemy, he's in the heights of the heavens, he sees the enemies of Ra, and he begins to follow them in the great winged disc. So this winged disc is a physical moving object in this story. You can call it what you want, but this is a UFO following the enemies of Ra. Then he attacks the enemies with such terrific force. So this great winged disc has the ability to attack, and it attacks with such terrific force that the people that it attacked, they could neither see with their eyes nor hear with their ears, and each of them slew his fellow. So it's something, it's terrific force. It's very, very bright because they can't see. It's very, very loud because they can't hear with their ears. They're scared, they're panicking, and they're in a frenzy, and they start killing each other. The enemies start killing each other. Now this is the tale that the Egyptians are telling about this UFO. Okay. It goes on to say, in a moment of time, there was not a single creature left alive. So this happened very, very fast. So if we can look at this through modern eyes, the weaponry that this winged disc had, okay, was able to attack very, very fast. It could move very, very fast. It could fly through the air. It could attack. It was bright. The weapons were bright. The weapons were loud. It was making people kill their comrades, their friends, and it all happened in a moment of time. And it was very, very fast. Not a single person, not a single creature was left alive. So apparently, the humans that this netter Heru Bahute was attacking, they were no match for him in the form of the winged disc. They were no match for this UFO. It goes on to say, then Heru Bahute, shining with very many colors, came in the form of the great winged disc. Pause. So this great, now we get more information, right? This great winged disc is shining with very many colors. So it's a winged disc, and it may not actually have wings, or maybe it does like a plane, but it's a disc that can fly. It can soar through the heavens. From its place in the heavens, it can clearly see what's going on the ground. It can follow people. It has weaponry. It can attack people. The weaponry is bright. The weaponry is loud. This winged disc, this UFO, it shines with many colors, right? And what else do you want to call it? What else do you want to call it? You know, of course, they're not going to say UFO, family. Of course, they're not going to say unidentified flying object. But if you see a winged disc, shining with many colors, it can move fast, it can soar through the heavens, it has weapons on it. Come on, man. What else is? Wasn't no planes. Well, there wasn't any airplanes back then. What is this that they're talking about? Now, you don't have to believe it, right? That's not what I'm saying. You don't have to believe it. But the question is, are the Egyptians talking about what we know to be UFOs? They already have these beings that they say came from somewhere amongst the stars. You see how when the story started, Ra had been ruling for over 300 years. So these beings live longer than the average human. Okay, these beings came from somewhere among the stars. These beings are recognized as gods to the humans. They're like the humans, but they're not like the humans. They're similar to the humans, but they're different. They're different somehow. They came from somewhere else, right? And they live an extremely long time. They have winged discs that can fly. They have discs that can fly, that has weaponry attached to it, and that's shining with many colors. I mean, this straight like this sounds extraterrestrialish. You know, this sounds extraterrestrialish. Plain and simple. Then Heru Behutep, shining with very many colors, came in the form of the great winged disc to the boat of Ra Hormachis and Thoth Tahuti, said unto Ra, Otet hath returned in the form of the great winged disc, shining with many colors, blah, 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 children. So we're gonna stop that one right there. Okay, so that's the legend of Heru of Behutep. Excuse me, the great winged disc. And you tell me, does that sound like Egyptians are talking about UFOs, family? Does that sound like Egyptians are talking about UFOs? And now, and I want you guys to think about something else. Think about this, man. What do we call UFOs, right? Well, not even UFOs. When NASA sends up something into space, okay, when NASA sends up something into space and it has astronauts on it, what do we call it? Huh? What do we call it? Come on, y'all know. Y'all know, what do we call that, family? Spaceships. Spaceships, family. They just sent one to Mars, right? I know y'all watch the news. I'm not the only person that follow the news. They just sent the Perseverance rover. They just sent the Perseverance rover to Mars. Okay. And now there's another rover, because there was also the Curiosity rover on Mars that's searching for signs of primitive life on Mars. And so whenever they send something up there, they call it a spaceship. It's a flying mechanism. It's a ship in the sky, a spaceship. Check this out, family. Keep that in mind. Today we call them spaceships. These UFOs could be a spaceship. Where we send our astronauts up into sky with. Those also can be called spaceships. I want y'all to look at the screen. Look at the screen, family. What is that? What is that? That's a boat, right? That's a boat with various different rules on it. The one in front, that looks like on the left, going from the left, that look on the left of the boat, that looks like possibly Heru with the sun disk and the serpent on his hair. Remember that serpent? Behind him, that looks like the Pharaoh, probably. Maybe that's the ruler. Next to him look like Amen. I'm not sure. Maybe that's Nephthys. Maybe. Geb. That maybe that's Newt. It's hard for me to see the names. That's Asar in all white. That's Aset behind Asar. And then that last person that looks like a human with their name in the shin. Maybe that's Ra. It's hard for me to see the metal netter that's written there. I can't read metal netter anyway. Don't get me wrong. I don't want a lot of you guys. I can recognize certain things, but it's just pattern recognition for me at this point. Like, I know when I'm reading Aset. I know when I'm reading Geb. I know when I'm reading Asar. I know when I'm reading Heru. I can recognize those things. Not that I know the language, but I've seen the names in certain locations and I remember it. I recognize it. And then it has the pictures right here with them. So I'm not doing anything special with the language. But you see them on the boat, and you see above them is Newt, right, with the sun traveling through her body. Okay, remember the sun travels through her body every night, and it's born again in the daytime. Okay, symbolically speaking. Now this boat is symbolically traversing through the heavens. What you got to understand about the Egyptians, when they talk about Ra, remember what I told you guys. Ra is the sun. Okay, that's facts. That's big facts. Ra is the sun, but Ra is also a netter. And this netter is said to ride on a boat through the heavens, right? And what do they call his boat, family? They call it a sky boat. Ra rides on a sky boat. What do we call those things that we send off into space? Spaceships. Spaceship, sky boat. Space, sky. Ship, boat, spaceship, sky boat. So don't get confused just because they're saying boat. These people were a culture centered around the river Nile. So their primary means of transportation, other than their feet, before they adopted the technology of the chariot, were boats. But when you're talking about in pre-dynastic times, they traveled on boats. So when they talk about Ra in his sky boat, you can that is another allusion to what our modern understanding would call a spaceship or a UFO. It is some form of technology that travels through the heavens. And on his boat, Ra travels through the heavens on this sky boat, this spaceship, and the other Neteru are with him. So again, you have beings on a ship flying through the sky. And I just pulled that up to show you guys an image of the sky boat with the Neteru on the sky boat of Ra traversing through the heavens. So when you think about spaceships, know that the Egyptians talked about Ra on his sky boat. What do you think the sky boat of Ra is? If the Egyptians say that, now you don't have to believe it, but if the Egyptians say that these beings are real, there are these beings. I'm not saying that they look how the picture looks. Don't get confused because some of the Neteru have bird heads. Don't get confused because some of the Neteru have cat heads. Miss me with all of that because they came from somewhere else anyway. The animal features are just to highlight qualities within the character. That's it. Qualities within the character. That's not to say that this is exactly how they look, but it is an attribute of that animal that they attach to the being. So you have these beings that the Egyptians are talking about that originate somewhere amongst the stars, who come to Earth, who rule on the planet Earth with the humans. They're similar to the humans, but they're different from the humans. Okay? And you have them talking about these humans or these netters living for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. Okay? And these beings have technology that can fly through the sky. It has weaponry on it. Okay? It is shining with many colors. In several instances, they call it a winged disc. In several instances, they call it sky boats. Did the Egyptians talk about UFOs? You tell me. Maybe not by the name UFO, but they definitely talking about, to me, in my opinion, they're definitely talking about what we would call today UFOs. It's clear to me. Okay, it's clear to me. And this is the interesting thing about it. Now, the Egyptians say that they learned magic from the Neteru, right? From Aset and from Tahuti, or who the Greeks call Thoth. They learned magic, and they considered what we'll call today certain types of technology to be magic. And so there are instances where the Egyptians tell stories that their magicians had the ability to create these sky boats. And not only create these sky boats, to create living creatures to fly the sky boat. Right? Watch this. Now, this is crazy. Now, this is really, really creepy when you look at it through modern eyes. And some people say, you can't look at those ancient records through modern eyes. But I'm talking about UFOs. That's what I'm doing anyway, family. You ever notice how people talk about being abducted by aliens? And the average abduction story, they say that some beings came through their window while they were, think about it. Listen to me, family. Y'all know about the abductions. The average abduction story, someone is saying that they were asleep inside of their home. Some beings either came in through the window, materialized in the bedroom, walked through the wall, came through the door. Some kind of way, some small beings that their skin looked gray, right? Or their skin looked green, or their skin looked pale, not pale like Europeans, Caucasians, but like palish grayish. Okay, these beings had big eyes, little mouths. They didn't really talk. Long fingers. They were humanoid, but not really human. Big heads. They look waxy. You know what I mean? And so these beings, sometimes, it could be 1, 2, 4, something like that, but never really like 120. So it raised about, between 1 and 4 of these beings. They come into the people's room. They take them out of their bed. They take them onto their ship, take them somewhere, do things to them, right? Listen to me, family. Do things to them, run experiments on them. Okay, now I know y'all think Pooh is jumping all the way out the window. Just stick with me, man. Stick with me. They do experiments on them. Okay, they probe them. They take blood. Sometimes women say that they get them pregnant. They may see other people on the ship, but they're on these ships. They're communicating with telepathically. Sometimes they don't know what's going on. Sometimes they're hurt. Sometimes they're not. Then they are returned to where they originated at. Right? That's the classic abduction story. That's 95% of the time. That's what the person tells. So check this out, man. It is crazy. Did you know that there's a story written by the ancient Egyptians that sounds just like an abduction story, family? Y'all think I'm lying? You think I'm lying, don't you? You think I'm lying? Egyptians ain't talking about getting abducted by no alien. They didn't talk about somebody coming in while you sleep in the middle of the night, taking you on some ship, flying you out somewhere, doing things to you, and then returning you back to your bed. Egyptians never talked about that back in the day. I got news for you, buddy. The rabbit hole go deep, man. The rabbit hole go deep when you really start let me I'm open up a few of these, man. When you really start to dig into it, yeah, the rabbit hole get deep, man. I'm finna show y'all what I propose to be an abduction story. Okay? I know y'all think I'm crazy. Whatever. It is what it is. What I propose to be an abduction story in ancient Egypt. You heard it here first. You heard it here first, family. An abduction story in ancient Egypt. Now, this is why if you're in the ancient Egypt, you have to get your hands on some of the actual text. Because when you get your hands on the actual text, you can read what the Egyptians were actually saying and what the Egyptians were talking about. Because I noticed that a lot of times people don't want to tell you what the Egyptians actually were saying. They only want to tell you their interpretation of what the Egyptians were saying. Right? They don't want to tell you, huh? Oh, okay. Mm. Oh, it was real fake? Ah, okay. Oh. Okay. Okay, love you. All right, yeah, sorry about that, family. Yeah, I am a father, so when I gotta pay attention to my children, I gotta pay attention to my children. Y'all know how it go, man. Most of y'all have children, so it's no big deal. Give me a second. I want to find it in this book as well, so I can I have it queued up, but damn, man, sorry about that, man. I know I'm taking a long time. But I want to show y'all this abduction story. This is crazy, man. Excuse me. I want to show y'all this abduction story. Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard that the Egyptians have a story that sounds eerily similar to which one is it? To an alien abduction. Instructions. Oh, give me just a second. I didn't plan on going to the actual book. That's what the problem is. So now I'm looking through the books to try to remember which one it is. What you have is Ancient Egyptian Literature by Miriam Litcham, volume 1, 2, and 3. And so the story that I'm looking for, it's in one of these, but I don't remember if it was in 1, 2, or 3, obviously. So now I'm gonna give it just a few more seconds because I don't want to just leave y'all in limbo. I'm gonna give it a few more seconds. If I don't find it, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna move on. I thought that would be it right there. Yeah, let me see if that's it. Let me see. Let me see. 215 maybe. Okay, so I can't find it, man. I'm sorry. But basically, what we have, family, is let me see. Basically, there's a story written in ancient Egypt. Now, the story is purported to have been yeah, sorry about that, man. Now, the story is purported to have been, I believe, around the time of Pharaoh Ramses. Okay. And during the time of Pharaoh Ramses, that's why I wish I could have found it. During the time of Pharaoh Ramses, I believe someone comes. Man, I need to hold on, man. Now I gotta find it, because if I don't give it to y'all right, somebody's gonna say that I'm lying, I'm making it up, I'm talking out the side of my neck. You know, y'all know how people do, man. They don't believe nothing. They don't believe it if you don't give it to them right, then it's just not true. If you don't give it to them right, then it's just not true. But the overall point is someone is telling the Pharaoh about a story that took place in the distant past of ancient Egypt. Right? Truth and falsehood. She said, portal on the moon. And when he was telling the story about what happened in the distant past of ancient Egypt, he ends up telling this story about what I call an abduction. What today we would call an abduction. Some would even go as far as to say, man, I looked it over 120 times, man. They would call it alien abduction, flat out. Okay, man, I'm so sorry. That was about 20 minutes, man. I hope I ain't lost y'all. So ancient Egyptian literature is in volume 3. Now this sounds just like an abduction, right? Now check this out. Now it's in a story. I know it's kind of blurry. It's called the Nubian Sorcerer, right? The Nubian Sorcerer. This is how I start out, family. After these things, it happened one day that Pharaoh Ursa-Ma'ara went to the court of the palace of Memphis, and the council of nobles and generals and grandees of Egypt stood in their ranks in the court. Then one came to announce, there is a communication being made by a chieftain of Nubia, which is bound to his body in a document. When he had been announced before Pharaoh, he was brought to the court. He saluted and said, is there anyone who will read this document that I have brought to Egypt before Pharaoh without breaking its seal? one who will read the writing that is in it without opening it. Okay, hold on. Snoozy say you believe in it. Now, I do believe aliens are real. I believe extraterrestrials are real. I do believe that there's life on other planets, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. Now, these stories that I'm reading, I can't say one way or another, but I do know that this is, to me, this is what these stories are talking about. The same way people are, where I'm talking about now, the abduction, the same way people right now are talking about getting abducted. There's a story in Egypt that sounds eerily similar to an abduction. That's what I know. I know that's what the story sounds like. Now, the same way, I don't know if the people living today are actually getting abducted. Who says that they're getting abducted? I don't know. Man, I don't know if this guy got abducted, but it's going to sound like he got abducted based on what we know an abduction to be. So, anyway, you see how, hold on just a second, family. Okay, so what happens is during Pharaoh Ursuma a Nubian sorcerer that they're calling him comes into the court, and he has this book bound to him. And so he says, is there anybody in the land that can read the book without opening it? So a lot of things transpire. They're like, oh, no one is going to be able to actually read the book without looking at it. That's basically impossible. And so all the wise men of ancient Egypt, the wise men, the learned men, the scribes, the magicians, they all consult with one another. They consult with Pharaoh. And they're like, nobody can actually read that, But they're shook because Nubia and Egypt had beef. And they're basically saying that if they can't do this feat of magic and read what's on the book without looking at it, then that's going to bring shame on Egypt. You got these powerful sorcerers, these powerful magicians, but you can't complete this feat. So it will bring shame on Egypt. They don't want to bring shame on Egypt, so they want to be able to read it. And so this special kid, Asar, he comes along and he says, wait, go play. He comes along and he says, all right, here I come. He comes along and says that he can read it. Don't worry about it. He can read it. And so he says that the book that's strapped to the Nubian sorcerer's chest, he says that what the book is a story about something that took place in the land of Egypt 1,500 years ago. Okay? And the story that is documenting that took place 1,500 years ago went like this. And then they go into how the story transpired. So check this out, family. Check this out. It's crazy. Watch this. It's crazy. Like I say, you don't actually have to believe that this happened, but the fact that it's written down means that someone told a story like this. Now, whether it actually happened or not, it's factual that they told a story like this. Just like today, I can't say if somebody got abducted by aliens or not, but it's a fact that people are claiming to be abducted by aliens. So you see how it says, let me zoom in. Here begin the stories that Osare related before Pharaoh and his nobles, with the people of Egypt listening to his voice. Okay, hold on. Let me finish. Listening to his voice. He said, what is written in the letter of the chieftain of Nubia, who stands here in the center, is the following. It came to pass one day in the time of Pharaoh Mekpri-Siamun, who was beneficent king of the whole land with Egypt, overflowing with all good things in his time. For he was generous in giving expenditure and work in the great temples of Egypt. That day it happened that the ruler, Ru, please go in the room, please. Go in the room. That day it happened that the ruler of the land of Nubia was resting in a pavilion in the woodlands of Amun when he heard the voices of three chieftains of Nubia in the back room. One of them was talking in a loud voice and said, pause right there. So the story in the book is talking about something that happened in the days of Pharaoh Mikprisi Amun. Okay, now the story is shifting and it's talking about something that happened in the land of Nubia. You have the ruler of Nubia. He's resting in his pavilion, right? And he in the woodlands of Amun. Apparently the god Amun was in Nubia as well. So the ruler of Nubia, he's chilling, he's relaxing, he's kicked back, and he's enjoying the view. And so he hears people talking. He hears some of his sorcerers talking. I guess in the next room or a little ways away from him. It doesn't really describe that part of the scene, but he overhears a conversation. Now, this is the conversation that the ruler of Nubia hears. He says, one of them was talking in a loud voice and said among other things, were it not that Amun might find fault with me and the Lord of Egypt might punish me, I would cast my sorceries upon Egypt and would make the people of Egypt spend 3 days and 3 nights seeing no light, only darkness. So this particular Nubian sorcerer is saying that if it wasn't for the god Amun-Ra, he would cast a spell and put Egypt in total darkness for 3 days and 3 nights. So you see that they have a reverence for Amun-Ra as well, even in the land of Nubia. So the netters, these beings, had influence there as well. It goes on to say, another of the 3 Nubian sorcerers, another of them said, among other things, were it not that Amun might accuse me and the Lord of Egypt might punish me, watch this, I would cast my sorceries upon Egypt and would have Pharaoh brought from Egypt to the land of Nubia and would have him beaten with 500 blows of the stick in public before the ruler and would have him return to Egypt all within 6 hours. So you have this other guy, he's saying that if it wasn't for his fear of Amun-Ra, he would use his sorceries to have the Pharaoh of Egypt brought to the land of Nubia, beaten with 500 or 600 stripes, and then I see it. And then he would have him. No, I'm doing something. Just wait a minute. Just give me a second, please. Please give me a second. Give me. Okay, sorry about that. Then have him return to Egypt. Okay, sounds pretty straightforward enough. So watch this. So what eventually happens is excuse me, heartburn. So what eventually happens is the ruler of Nubia, after he hear him, he say, hey, which one of y'all said that y'all could bring the Pharaoh here, have him beaten with stripes, and then return to Egypt all within 6 hours? And one of them, he's like, I said that I could do it. And so the ruler was like, hey, you gonna do that? Don't worry about Amun, don't worry about Amun-Ra, don't worry about the Pharaoh. If you can bring the Pharaoh of Egypt here and have him beaten and taken back, then you use your sorceries to do it. And so reluctantly he does it. So let's look and see how he achieves this feat, right? Let's look and see how he achieves this feat. Not that one. Y'all give me just a second. Let me close some of these. We got that. We don't need that. We don't need that no more. We don't need that. Okay, here we go. Now it's finna get good. I appreciate y'all sticking with me, family. Okay, so he says, all right. So let's go a sentence above the highlighted part. All right, a sentence above the highlighted part. He says, the ruler said to Heru, son of the Nubian woman. Now, Heru, son of the Nubian woman, is the sorcerer who's going to be carrying this out. So you see, Amen is in Nubia in this story. Heru is known in this story. So we can imagine that what they're calling sorcery, or this technology, these abilities, they likely got from the same Neter root as the Egyptians. Okay, so he says, the ruler said to Heru, son of the Nubian woman, carry out your feat of sorcery by Amun, the bull of Meroe, my God. If your hand succeeds, I will do for you many good things. So look what he does, family. Heru, son of the Nubian woman, we're in the highlighted. Heru, or Horus, son of the Nubian woman, made a liter of wax with 4 bearers. He recited a spell to them. He gave them breath. He made them live. He commanded them, saying, you are to go to Egypt. You are to bring Pharaoh of Egypt up to the place where the ruler is. He shall be beaten with 500 blows of the stick in public before the ruler, and you shall return him to Egypt all within 6 hours. They said, certainly we shall not omit anything. The sorceries of the Nubian flew down to Egypt by night. They overpowered Pharaoh Menkpresiamun. They took him to the land of Nubia, to the place where the ruler was. They beat him with 500 blows of the stick in public before the ruler, and they returned him to Egypt all within 6 hours. So what are you seeing here, family? What they're calling the sorceries of the Nubian, he took a liter of wax with 4 bearers, right? He made a liter of wax with 4 bearers. He recited a spell to them. He gave them bread. He made them live. So this guy created from wax 4 beings, 4 different beings, 4 different entities. He used a spell to give them breath, and he made them come alive. So you have these wax creatures created by this Nubian sorcerer. He told him to go to Egypt, abduct the Pharaoh, bring him to Nubia, and then take him back. And so these creatures responded and said, certainly we shall not omit anything. So just imagine that for a second. Imagine the picture that this ancient writer was talking about. They're talking about creatures made out of wax. What do these little great aliens look like when you see them? Think about it, family. Think about it. These little bitty humanoid creatures, okay, that fly around in some kind of ship, some kind of spaceship, some kind of UFO. They show up in people's rooms or homes at night. These creatures in the story went to the Pharaoh at night. They flew to Egypt by night. They overpowered Pharaoh in his bed chambers. If you read the story further, he was in his bed chambers. He was laying in his bed. In fact, Pharaoh says he thought he was dreaming at first. And his guards that was outside the door, they thought that he was relating a dream to him when he told them what happened. Until he saw the blows on his back, when he saw that he had physical things on his body, he was like, wait a minute, something actually happened to me. What the hell is going on? Because these wax figures flew from Nubia to Egypt, came into his bedchamber in the middle of the night. They overpowered him, right? They overpowered him. They took him onto their flying boat. They carried him back to Nubia. They beat him with 500 blows at a stick. Then they took him back to Egypt, all within 6 hours. So they went and got him, abducted him, did some stuff to him, took him back. He woke up, thought he was dreaming, called for his people. He was like, hey, some crazy stuff just happened. They thought the Pharaoh was tripping. They thought the Pharaoh was going crazy. They thought the Pharaoh was dreaming. Tell me that don't sound like an alien abduction, man. Not saying that, it's an alien abduction. Aliens abducted him, but I'm saying that is what this story is sounding like. You know, just it is what it is. And get this, family. So after that happened, the Pharaoh was like, hey, bring all my sorcerers to me. Bring all my magicians to me. Say, look, man, I can't have this happen to me no more. You know? And so everybody was like, oh, we need to come up with some kind of magic that can defeat the magic of the Nubians. But this magic, this sorcery could be technology. We need a technology that's more powerful than the technology of the Nubians, because the Pharaoh didn't want to get abducted no more. And so what they did, they created him an amulet, right? His most powerful magician created him an amulet that would not allow these wax figures to abduct him anymore. And in fact, it worked. They tried to come again, and they weren't able to get him. The amulet protected him. They weren't able to overpower him. And so then, get this. So then what the Egyptian magicians did, they created wax figures. They brought them to life, and then they sent them to Nubia to go get the Nubian ruler, bring him, abducted him, brought him to Egypt, beat him, and then returned him to Egypt. And the Nubians tried to create an amulet to protect him. But the next night, the Egyptians sent the wax figures again in the UFO to go abduct the ruler of Nubia. They abducted him again, and the amulet didn't work. And it was all to show that the power of the magic of the Egyptians was superior to the power of the magic of the Nubians. Okay, but the concept, the idea that I want you to glean from this is they're telling a story that sounds a lot like alien abduction. It's damn near the same thing. People say that, oh, I was in my bed, I was asleep. Pharaoh was in his bed, he was asleep. Beings appeared in my room. Beings appeared in the room of Pharaoh. They took him onto a ship. These beings took Pharaoh onto a skyboat, right? Matter of fact, let me show y'all that real quick. Was already showed y'all, we call them spaceships. They referred to these things, the Egyptians referred to these things as skyboats. A skyboat is basically the same thing as a spaceship. Look at the highlighted part. By Amun, the bull of Meroe, my God, if you cannot make me safe from the skyboats of the people of Egypt, I shall make you suffer a harsh death, which shall be painful to you. And that's, like I told y'all, the Egyptians sent skyboats to Nubia as well. And, you know, they abducted the ruler of Nubia as well. But what I underlined is skyboats. I want you to see that they literally in the story call it a skyboat. So these beings are in skyboats, abducting people. And they're taking them somewhere in the dark of the night, doing things to them, taking them back to where they kidnapped them from. Just like when people get abducted, they get returned right into their bed, man. They get returned right into their bed. That's just the Egyptian way. I mean, not the Egyptian, that's just the abduction way. So when you ask yourself something, man, and it's plenty more that I can show, but this video already went on a little long, and I apologize because I didn't have it all the way organized to where the information will flow. Next time I'm going to do it in a PowerPoint presentation so I can have all of my slides already ready. I won't be taking 10 minutes trying to find something. I know a lot of people probably dropped off while I was talking, while I was doing some of that. And so as I try to grow my channel, that's just something that I got to learn. So again, the Egyptians definitely talk about beings coming from someplace amongst the stars. They talked about these beings being similar to humans, but not exactly human. They talked about these beings being able to live longer than we can live. These beings ruled on Earth with the humans. These beings had what they called sky boats. They were able to fly in what they call winged discs. These winged discs were multicolored. They had weaponry attached to them. They have stories talking about magic or sorcery. Oh man, there was one other thing that I wanted to show y'all, man. I'm probably gonna say that for another day. But remember when I was telling y'all about those serpents? It's another. You notice how that serpent kept coming up in the story of Heru-Behutep. Even when you look at the winged sun dish, you see the winged sun dish with the serpent. There's another story in Egypt, right? There's another story in Egypt. I gotta show you some of this. I just gotta do it. There's another story in Egypt where I don't even think I queued that one up. Yeah, I gotta get better. But that story is known as the shipwrecked sailor. And so you have this story about a sailor. He goes out on an expedition for the king. Strong winds come up. He gets shipwrecked on this island. Now, when he was on this island, he says he runs into this serpent. Now, he says that this serpent is like, I don't know, what was it, 30 cubits long. Now, you got to understand something. A cubit in ancient Egypt was about 20 inches, 18 to 20 inches. So we're talking about something that was easily 45 feet long or 45 feet tall. And he says that it had a beard that was about 2 to 3 feet long. And he said that when this thing was approaching him, it was rumbling like thunder and moving trees. So you can imagine this beast of a thing, 45 feet high, 45 feet long, coming at you, moving through the boom, boom, moving trees as it come close to you. And he said when he saw it, he dropped down. He thought it was finna die. He thought it was finna eat him. Thought it was finna kill him. And then this thing spoke to him. He even said that it took him up in his mouth and took him off to another part of the island, to his lair, to his home, and set him down. And when he described it, this what was interesting. He said that something about his eyes was like real lapis lazuli, and his body was like gold, plated in gold. That's how he described it. Now imagine he called it a snake or a serpent in the story. But there's no snakes this big, and snakes can't talk. Well, python. It's some pretty big python. I don't know about 45 feet. I don't know about a 45-foot python, but there's some pretty big snakes. But he said this was 45 feet, right? And it could talk, and his eyes was like lapis lazuli, and it was like gold plated. Now, mind you, this could be I don't know. It could be something connected to these netters as well, because there's a story about Isis and the secret name of Ra, and they describe Ra as when he got old, that his bones was like silver, his body was like gold, and his eyes was like lapis lazuli. So you see the description of Ra, it correlates with the description of this serpent. And you see the serpent or the snake associated with these Neteru in these various stories. And so this serpent, this serpent that's on this island, he talks about how one day, get this, one day a star fell from the heaven, crashed down on the island. He said that he was living there on the island, with his brothers and sisters, and it was like a family of them, like 75 in all, he said, and they had children. So it was serpents, like that could talk and walk and do all that good stuff. Serpent made of gold, eyes like lapis lazuli, living on an island. Right, this could be some of the Neteru too. Who knows, man? I'm just telling y'all the story. And they were living on this island, and a star fell from heaven, killed everybody in an instant. He just happened to be somewhere else on the island, but when he came back, he saw the bodies laid up, and he was so sorrowful and so, he cried and he mourned over the loss of everybody, and he had been on that island by himself ever since then. And so eventually the guy that was shipwrecked, he eventually made it back to the land of Egypt. Yeah, go get the cup. And so he eventually made it back to the land of Egypt, and that's how he was able to record this story. But that's interesting as well. It was that some kind of extraterrestrial? Not saying, and again, you don't have to believe it. It's not necessarily that is true or that it happened. I don't know. I wasn't there. It's just a story, But they're telling the same types of stories that people are telling now. That's the point. Did the Egyptians talk about UFOs? Did they talk about extraterrestrials? Did they talk about some of these things that today people talk about, like reptilians? How long have these types of stories actually been around? In Sumeria, Mesopotamia, they talk about these Anunnaki, beings that came down. How long have these stories been around? Did the Egyptians have some of these same stories and concepts and ideas? I think they did. I think they were saying the same type of stuff that everybody else was saying. And that's why that serpent, even that star that fell from heaven, like that, a star didn't fall for one. A star is a sun. So it wasn't a star. Could have been a meteor. A meteor could have hit, but you would generally think if it's a meteor like that, as big, it may have destroyed the whole island. But this star from heaven or from the sky could have been weaponry. That's what the story could have been alluding to. That something in the sky had weaponry that killed them, that destroyed them. We see how Heru-Bahutep was flying around in the form of a winged disc and attacking people that was on the ground. We saw that. We know that one of the main enemies of Ra in the heavens is a serpent named Apophis. We know that. So maybe this was an enemy of Ra. We see here Heru-Bahutep was looking for enemies of Ra. I'm just throwing some stuff out there. But UFOs in ancient Egypt, did they talk about UFOs in ancient Egypt? I'm of the opinion that they did. You can leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Do y'all think that sounded like like what people call abductions today? This winged disc, does that sound like a UFO? These sky boats, is a sky boat like, is that a spaceship? Or was that their word for it, for what they were choosing to talk about, be it real or be it fake, what they were talking about? Yeah, I do believe that in Egyptian literature, you can see talk about extraterrestrials, beings from other places. I do think you can find stories about technology worded differently. I do feel like you can find things about UFOs worded differently. You can definitely hear about Neteru living and ruling and doing all kind of stuff that regular people can't do. Living for hundreds, even thousands of years. So yeah, just let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. As always, before I check out, you guys know I am an author, so I always like to promote my works. I'm trying to get as known as possible so I can make writing my career. This is my most popular novel. It's called Suicide Note by Matthew Daniels. The link will be in the description. It's an urban fiction novel. You can read the synopsis in the description. You can get this for $15. It's sold on Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com. Just click the link. You can even get it for 99 cents in the ebook version. I want you guys to read that synopsis. You're going to get hooked. Everybody that read it, they love it. Show your support by that book from your brother. You can Google it, Suicide Note by Matthew Daniels. I also have my second novel, Thicker Than Water. The link for that is always in the description. This one is a little longer, so it's $17, but you can also get the ebook for 99 cents as well. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I've already been on for a little over an hour. I stretched this thing out a little longer than I wanted to. So, yeah, just let me know what you think. Leave a comment. Make sure you like. Make sure you share. Make sure you subscribe. And, you know, any kind of comment is welcome. Just don't be disrespectful. But yeah, man, what I plan to do with this channel is everything about Egypt, Comedic TV. We're going to be talking about Egypt. We're going to be looking at some of the texts. We're going to be talking about the gods. We're going to be talking about the Netaru. We're going to be talking about how we practice Mayat in our lives. Do we practice Mayat? Does it matter if we practice Mayat? We're going to be talking about different dynasties and, you know, everything committed. So UFOs in ancient Egypt. I hope you guys like this. If you have any more information to share, just let me know what you guys think. Hotel, I'm out. Thanks for joining me, family.